Today, I'm sharing my story. Not because I want sympathy, but because I want people to understand. Sometimes, the deepest betrayal plants the seeds of the most powerful transformation. This is not a story of heartbreak. It's a story of awakening, strategy, and victory. I married Ethan when I was 24. He was everything I thought I wanted: charming, successful, confident. We met at a charity gala where he was a keynote speaker. He captivated everyone in the room, but somehow made me feel like the only person who mattered. A year later, we were married, moved into a beautiful home in the suburbs, built a life of weekend brunches, shared goals, and travel. He worked as a financial consultant. I ran my interior design business. We had a rhythm, a routine. It's a picture-perfect life. Or so it seemed. The first crack appeared on our 7th anniversary. He came home late, smelling like expensive wine and faint perfume. Not mine. He mumbled something about a demanding client and went straight to bed. I told myself not to overthink it. Work had been stressful, right? But the late nights increased. The affection decreased. His phone, once left casually on the counter, now never left his side. New passwords, new cologne, new gym habits. He even started dressing up to grab coffee. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't scream. I didn't accuse. I watched one evening while he showered. His phone buzzed. I looked. A message flashed across the screen. "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was amazing." The sender was saved as M. My stomach dropped. And just like that, the illusion shattered. Still, I didn't confront him. Not yet. I needed certainty. And more importantly, leverage. Over the next few weeks, I played my part. I smiled, I kissed him goodbye. And I hired a private investigator. The truth came back in grainy photos, time-stamped hotel visits, and receipts Ethan never thought I'd see. Her name was Melissa, his coworker. They weren't hiding. They were just arrogant. I spent one night mourning, and the next morning I woke up someone else. Not the betrayed wife, but the strategist. Step 1, secure myself. I met with a lawyer, one of the best in the city. I learned my rights, created a private legal account, and began separating my finances. Ethan didn't know I had always kept personal savings. He underestimated me. I quietly transferred assets, gathered documents, and made copies of everything: bank statements, property deeds, investment accounts. Step 2, rebuild my identity. I hired a personal trainer, started expanding my business. Went to networking events, especially the ones Ethan usually avoided. I didn't fade. I rose. Then came the opportunity. Ethan's firm was negotiating a huge partnership. A promotion was on the line, one that would make him a partner. What he didn't know was, one of my new contacts was a decision maker in the client's executive team. And I made sure whispers about Ethan's questionable integrity reached the right ears. I never made accusations. I didn't need to. I let doubt do the heavy lifting. Then came the final act. I hosted a charity gala at our home, a glamorous, high-profile event. Ethan was beaming, shaking hands with colleagues, clients, friends. He had no idea the walls were closing in. Halfway through the night, I had envelopes delivered discreetly to a few key guests. Inside, the private investigator's full report. Photos, dates, receipts. The room began to shift. Whispers, glances, and Ethan, finally sensing it, started to panic. His senior partner pulled him aside. I watched from across the room as Ethan's confidence drained from his face. By the end of the week, his promotion was revoked. He was placed under internal review. But I wasn't done. One morning, I placed the divorce papers on the kitchen table, stared at them, stunned, then at me. "I know, Ethan," I said. "Melissa, the hotel." "The lies I've known for a long time." His mouth opened, searching for excuses. But I stood up and walked away, not in anger, but in power. I didn't burn the bridge. I rebuilt the road on my terms. Today, I am free, thriving. No longer the woman who begged to be chosen, but the woman who chose herself. And that, my friends, is how betrayal became my greatest turning point. He opened his mouth to speak, but I raised my hand to stop him. Save your apologies. It is not a negotiation. You will sign these papers, and you will do so without contest. If you refuse, the evidence will become public, not just among your colleagues, but in court. Your career, what's left of it, will be destroyed completely. He sat in stunned silence, realizing that Ty had orchestrated every step, every piece of his unraveling. The man who once held all the power now sat powerless, trapped by his own mistakes. And so his sign, but my story doesn't end here. What followed was a new chapter of my life, one filled with unexpected turns and beginnings, and a final twist, though tentured, Ethan would never forget. The lesson I taught him after Ethan signed the divorce papers. A strange calm settled over me. I thought I would feel victorious, maybe even euphoric, but instead I felt an emptiness, like standing in a house of storms, surveying the damage. My marriage was officially over, and Ethan's career was in shambles. But he knew this was only the beginning of his long descent. The seeds I had planted, while it continued to grow long after I walked away, the media soon got wind of scandal. Small whispers in the business community turned into articles questioning Ethan's conduct. Though noms were explicitly mentioned, anyone knew. Us could read between the lines. His firm, desperate to salvage its reputation, quietly pushed him out under the guise of mutual agreement. What they really meant was that they could no longer risk associating with him. Meanwhile, I was thriving. The divorces Atlant had been generous, thanks to me, careful planning, and the leverage I held. I kept the house, a significant portion of our joint assets, and most importantly, my dignity. My interiorizing business, once a small passion project, was now flourishing beyond anything I could have imagined. Word of mouth spread quickly, and my growing circle of wealthy contacts brought many high-profile clients, but there was one thing that still nodded at me. Melissa, the woman who had willingly participated in destroying my marriage, had walked away unscathed. She continued working at Ethan's former firm, pretending to be innocent, as though she was just collateral damage in a failing relationship. I couldn't allow that she needed to feel the weight of her actions, just like Ethan had. Started gathering information quietly through my network of acquaintances. I've discovered that Melissa was now engaged to a man named Daniel, a senior executive at another financial firm. He was well respected and completely unaware of her post-involvement with Ethan. Their engagement had been announced recent, like Paul, with glowing social media posts and staged photos. The image they projected was one of perfection, but I knew better. I devised a plan one thought would expose her for who she truly was. But without getting my own hands dirty, it had to be subtle, untraceable, devastating. First, I arranged to meet Daniel through a mutual contact. I presented myself as a potential client interested in redesigning his company's new offices. During our meeting, I was polite, professional, and charming. We discussed design options, budgets, and timelines. By the end of the meeting, Daniel was thoroughly impressed with my work and my professionalism. The next few weeks, we held several follow-up meetings. Each time, I dropped small, seemingly innocent comments about trust, loyalty, and the importance of knowing the people we surround ourselves with. Daniel, intrigued by my insights, started opening up about his personal life. He spoke fondly of Melissa, but I could sense a flicker of doubt beginning to form as I carefully planted my seeds of suspicion. Then came the final push. I anonymously sent Daniel an enveloping, carefully curated evidence, photos, hotel receipts, and messages between Ethan and Melissa. Everything was presented factually, with no accusations or emotional language, just the cold truth of her past betrayal. Week later, the engagement was called off. Melissa's carefully constructed world collapsed overnight. Daniel cut all ties. Her reputation within the industry took a hit, and rumors about her surfaced in the same social circles she inseparably paraded through. She tried to salvage her career, but doors began closing one by one. No one wanted to associate with someone whose personal drama threatened Professional stability meanwhile, was struggling to rebuild his life. He had taken a lower-paying job at a smaller firm, far from prestige and influence. He once enjoyed his reputation remunerated, and the respect he once commanded had evaporated. I occasionally heard from mutual acquaintances Abutho. He was trying to navigate his diminished status, but I never reached out. I didn't need to. His suffering wasted its own punishment. In the midst of all this, I was finding joy again. I traveled places I had always dreamed of visiting, but never had the chance. Paris, Rome, Bali, Tokyo, each destination became symbol of my freedom, a celebration of life. I had reclaimed, I documented my travels subtly on social media, not to boast, but to silently remind those watching that I was thriving, my business continued to grow beyond my wildest expectations. I opened a second office, hired a team of talented designers, and secured contracts with several prestigious hotels and commercial property industry magazines. Began featuring my work, and I was invited to speak at conferences and design expos. My name was becoming known, not just locally, but nationally. Through it all, I remained careful not to speak publicly about Ethan or the affair. I didn't need to. The power of silence was far more effective. People formed their own opinions, and the narrative always seemed no favor me. After all, I was the woman who had risen from betrayal to build an empire on her own terms. But life, as I had learned, always has more twists. In story one afternoon while attending one evening, as we sat on my balcony overlooking the city skyline, Nathan took me hand and looked into my eyes. You've been through so much, Rachel, but you've built something incredible out of your pain. I don't want to take away your independence, but I do want to be part of your future. If you'll let me. Tears welled in my eyes, not from sadness, but from gratitude. I had survived betrayal, chested my revenge, and emerged stronger. And now I had found someone who saw me for who I truly was. I smiled and whispered, I'd like that very much. But even as I embraced this new chapter, I knew there was one last piece of unfinished business with Ethan, one final encounter that would serve as fuel to make closure. When our eyes met across the room, Ethan froze. For a moment, it was as if time paused. The confident man who once controlled my world now stood diminished, weighed down by his own choices. I held my gaze steady, offering only a polite smile before turning my attention back to Nathan. That simple gesture spoke volumes. It showed Ethan that he no longer held any power over me. That evening, as I moved throughout, Ethan cautiously approached. His voice was a quieter than I remembered, almost uncertain. Rachel, he said, can we talk for a moment? I glanced at Nathan, who gave a subtle nod, respecting my decision, as stepped aside with Ethan maintaining my composure. I never imagined things would end like as Ethan began, his eyes clouded with regret. I lost everything, the firm, my reputation. I listened, silently offering no comfort. He continued, I was a fool and I hurt you deeply. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I took a breath, my voice calm but firm. Ethan, I didn't need your apology to move on. You taught me how strong I can be, but Iwu so taught me how cruel people can become when they betray trust. I hope you have learned something too. His shoulders slumped slightly, and for the first time he truly looked defeated, not back. I had crushed him, but because he had finally seen the depth of what he lost. Without waiting for a response, it turned and walked away, Nathan welcoming back. With a gentle smile in enthapment, I felt a weight lift completely. My revenge was never about destroying him. It was about reclaiming myself. And I had done exactly that. Thanks for listening. Bye.